the dinghy was gone. We never heard it start. We never heard anything at all. We were so in love, and we had everything. And in a second it was gone.
At 95, Robert Wagner has finally spoken about the night Hollywood lost Natalie Wood. For decades, her death off Catalina Island has been shrouded in rumor, mystery, and unanswered questions. Was it a tragic accident or something more? Wagner's reflections are raw, personal, and reveal sides of the story we've never heard before. From arguments that sparked tension to quiet moments that defined their marriage. But to really understand what he has finally spoken about, we need to rewind, tracing a love story full of glamour, jealousy, and Hollywood's relentless spotlight. In this video, we'll break down Wagner's words and unpack the story behind one of Hollywood's longest-running enigmas. The night of November 28, 1981, started off calm. Aboard the Splendor, a 58-foot yacht anchored near two harbors on Catalina Island, Natalie Wood was winding down what should have been a cozy Thanksgiving weekend. She was 43 then, married to Robert Wagner, and joined by her Brainstorm co-star Christopher Walken and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern. It was meant to be a break from Hollywood. Good food, laughter, the ocean breeze. The kind of getaway that sounds peaceful until you realize peace rarely lasts long when drinks and emotions mix. Earlier that day, they'd gone ashore for dinner at Doug's Harbor Reef, a small restaurant where the drinks flowed as easily as the conversation. People who saw them that evening said everyone seemed in great spirits, especially Natalie and Christopher, who were laughing a lot, maybe a little too much for Robert's liking. They'd all had a few glasses of champagne, maybe more. It was the kind of night that could have just ended with a cozy toast and the sound of waves against the hull. But it didn't. When they got back to the boat, things started to shift. Drinks and jealousy rarely mix well. The atmosphere that had felt light and playful on shore turned tense. According to Captain Davern, Robert wasn't too happy about how close Natalie and Christopher seemed. The argument that followed started over something as simple as acting advice, Walken encouraging Natalie to focus more on her career. But soon it got personal. At some point, Wagner's temper snapped. He allegedly smashed a wine bottle and shouted, "What are you trying to do?" It must have been one of those moments where everyone in the room just freezes. Natalie, clearly upset, went off to her stateroom. Walken decided to turn in as well, probably wanting no part in what was happening. That left Wagner and Davern alone on deck. Hours passed. The night was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. And then, just after midnight, someone realized Natalie wasn't there anymore. The small dinghy, Valiant, was also gone. Now, this is where things get murky. Davern later claimed that Wagner didn't immediately rush to find her. He supposedly said something along the lines of, "We're not going to look too hard. We don't want to alert anybody." It sounds cold, but maybe he was in shock. Either way, they didn't call for help right away. They sat, they drank, they waited. It wasn't until around 1:30 a.m. that Wagner radioed in to report Natalie missing. Even then, he said she might have gone ashore. The Coast Guard wasn't actually called until 3:30 a.m., and a real search didn't start until the sun came up. By 7:45 that morning, November 29th, a small boat spotted something floating in the water, Natalie's body. She was wearing a nightgown, socks, and a red down jacket. The dinghy was found nearby, its motor untouched, almost like it had drifted off on its own. The autopsy showed drinks in her system and traces of painkillers and motion sickness medicine. She also had some bruises on her arms and legs, and a small one on her face. The coroner ruled it an accidental drowning. Maybe she slipped trying to tie the dinghy or climb back aboard. That was the official story. But that explanation never fully satisfied anyone. Why would someone who feared deep water and couldn't swim well leave the safety of the boat at night? Why the delay in calling for help? And those bruises? Could they really have been from a fall?
Stand up and tell me the truth. I know things go bad. I know people lose their tempers. I know bad things happen when you don't want them to. So stand up and tell me that. Tell me what happened to her.
For years, the mystery never really went away. Every new interview, every documentary, every exclusive source just added more confusion. Long before the jealousy, before the arguments, before the tragedy, there was a love story that had once captivated Hollywood. A young star and a rising actor, both chasing dreams, both believing in forever. Their story began like a fairy tale, the kind that made people believe in soulmates. But as we'll see, fairy tales don't always hold up under the spotlight. It all started in the mid-1950s when Hollywood was still shining in full Technicolor. Natalie Wood was just 18, a rising star fresh from Rebel Without a Cause and already Oscar-nominated. Robert Wagner, at 26, was one of those effortlessly charming studio stars, known for films like Prince Valiant and A Kiss Before Dying. They looked like a perfect match before they even met. Their first date wasn't even supposed to be real. Warner Brothers arranged it as a publicity stunt, one of those classic Hollywood setups meant to sell headlines, not emotions. But something about it clicked. Natalie later said she'd had a crush on Wagner since she was 10, after spotting him at a fashion show. She told her mom that day she'd marry him someday. And, wild as it sounds, she did. They got married on December 28, 1957, in Scottsdale, Arizona. The wedding was everything you'd expect from two rising stars: glamorous guests, glowing magazine spreads, and endless photos of them looking like the couple everyone wanted to be. The press dubbed them Hollywood's golden pair. They honeymooned in Europe, smiling on yachts, sipping coffee in Paris, doing all the things people dream about when life seems perfectly on track. But behind the sparkle, things were already getting complicated. In those early years, they worked together on All the Fine Young Cannibals, 1960, playing lovers on screen, which must have felt a bit too close to reality at times. Soon after, Natalie's career shot into another orbit. West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass made her one of the biggest stars of the decade. Wagner's career, though solid, couldn't quite keep up, and that imbalance quietly started to eat at them. Fame changes how couples fit together. It tests confidence, trust, and ego. By 1961, rumors about affairs were floating everywhere. Natalie was linked to Warren Beatty. Wagner's name came up in whispers, too. The tension finally cracked, and Natalie filed for divorce in 1961, citing mental cruelty. Some said she'd walked in on something she couldn't forgive. Their split was finalized in April 1962. But instead of bitterness, there was a strange kind of mutual respect. Natalie once said, "We were young and didn't know how to handle success." She kept working, diving headfirst into new films and earning another Oscar nomination for Love with the Proper Stranger in 1963. She even got engaged to a Venezuelan businessman for a while, though that didn't last. By 1969, she was married again, this time to British producer Richard Gregson. Their daughter Natasha was born in 1970. Wagner's life moved on too. He married actress Marion Marshall in 1963, had a daughter named Katie, and seemed settled for a while. But that marriage ended by 1971. For a short time, he was engaged to Tina Sinatra, but even that fizzled out. Then fate stepped in. In 1972, Natalie and Robert crossed paths again at a party. She was recently divorced from Gregson after discovering his affair. He was single too. Old feelings don't always fade. Sometimes they just go quiet for a while. Within months, they were back together, and on July 16, 1972, they remarried. And yes, the ceremony took place on a yacht off Malibu, an eerie echo of how their story would later end. They had another daughter, Courtney, in 1974. From the outside, it looked like a comeback story. Two people who had loved, lost, and found their way back. They worked together again, appeared on TV, and smiled for the cameras. It all looked serene. But every fairy tale has its fine print. Beneath the surface, the same old issues never fully disappeared. Career insecurities, emotional distance, and Natalie's long-standing fear of water, which dated back to a terrifying childhood accident on a movie set. By the late 1970s, their marriage had survived more than most, but the cracks were still there, hidden under layers of success, public smiles, and luxury. And that's what makes what happened next feel even heavier. Because before the storm hit aboard the Splendor, theirs really did look like a love story written for the silver screen. Only no one realized how fragile it had become.
Please don't feel that you have to keep pretending for Susan's benefit. She's a very intelligent child and always wants to know the absolute truth.
Good, because I always tell the absolute truth. Now, about your school, what's the name of your teacher?
Mrs. Haney.
Mrs. Haney.
Here it is.
Natalie Wood's journey from child star to adult icon was impressive, but it came with its own set of pressures, the kind that made her life and her marriage to Robert Wagner complicated. She was born Natalia Nikolaevna Zakharenko on July 20, 1938 in San Francisco to Russian immigrant parents. Her mom, Maria, was ambitious and pushed her daughter into acting early. By the age of 4, Natalie had her first role in Happy Land. It wasn't long before she became a recognizable face, especially after Miracle on 34th Street in 1947, where she played the skeptical little girl who doesn't quite believe in Santa. By the mid-50s, Rebel Without a Cause made her a teen idol, navigating the tricky shift from child actor to serious adult performer while working under Hollywood's strict studio system. Robert Wagner, born February 10, 1930, in Detroit, came into acting a little differently. Family connections helped him get started, signing with 20th Century Fox in 1950. He had a few early hits, but his career really found its rhythm on television. It Takes a Thief, 1968 to 1970, and Heart to Heart, 1979 to 1984, showcased him as the charming, suave type. Jonathan Hart was practically the perfect leading man opposite Stephanie Powers. He had charisma to spare, but it couldn't hide the fact that he sometimes struggled with professional envy, especially as Natalie's career continued to soar. Golden Globes, BAFTA nods, a star on the Walk of Fame. She was racking up accolades faster than he could, and that dynamic quietly shaped the undercurrent of their relationship. By the 1970s, their life together seemed like it was straight out of a magazine. A Beverly Hills mansion, yacht trips along the California coast, and a circle of A-list friends painted a picture of luxury and success. Natalie had slowed down a bit after becoming a mother, focusing on TV projects like the From Here to Eternity remake in 1979, which won her a Golden Globe. But by 1981, she was gearing up for a big comeback with Brainstorm, co-starring Christopher Walken. Wagner was riding high with Heart to Heart, but old jealousies never fully went away. Natalie's rumored flirtations, from Warren Beatty to acclaimed liaison with Donald Wilson while pregnant, added layers of tension, whether real or exaggerated by Hollywood gossip. Dennis Davern, the yacht captain, later described how Natalie and Robert argued more often than most people realized, sometimes over work, sometimes over jealousy, often fueled by drinks. Natalie confided her unhappiness at times, and Wagner's insecurities bubbled up. It was a complex mix of love, ambition, and personal rivalry. The kind of thing that rarely looks messy from the outside, but can feel overwhelming when you're in it. All of these factors set the stage for the weekend that would change everything. The Thanksgiving getaway was meant as a respite amid Brainstorm's grueling shoot. On November 27, 1981, the group sailed from San Pedro to Catalina, a 26-mile trip. Wood, fearing deep water due to a prophecy her mother believed that she'd drown, rarely swam but loved boating. The first night passed uneventfully, but Saturday brought discord. At the restaurant, they consumed 2 bottles of wine, champagne, and daiquiris. Back on board, the argument escalated. Walken recalled discussing acting commitment, but Wagner interpreted it as flirtation. After the bottle smashing, Wood slammed the door to her cabin. Wagner followed, and Davern heard crashing sounds, like things being thrown around. Then silence. Wagner returned, disheveled, with a scratch on his face, claiming Wood had gone to bed. When checked later, she was gone. The search was haphazard. Wagner radioed, "Someone is missing from our boat, Natalie Wood." But no immediate alarm. The Coast Guard arrived post-dawn, finding her body. Bruises suggested a possible struggle, but Noguchi attributed them to falling against the dinghy. Wood's fear of water made voluntary departure unlikely, fueling theories she was pushed or fled in panic.
Somebody's lying. Somebody hurt her. Somebody's hurting all of us.
At first, Natalie Wood's death was ruled an accidental drowning. It was quick, straightforward, and for many, the story seemed closed. But not everyone bought it. Lana Wood, Natalie's sister, had always questioned the explanation, pointing out her sister's fear of water and her inability to swim well. Even early on, some of the details didn't quite add up.
What was his demeanor? What was he like during that time? Did he seem sincerely worried or upset that she was missing?
Yes, he did. He had a very unusual look on his face of very hard to describe, but the whole situation was very strange.
You and Robert Wagner came up with a story together. You concocted some sort of story and lied to police investigators when they asked what had happened. What did he allegedly ask you to say?
In 1984, Dennis Davern, the captain of the Splendor, published a book suggesting a possible cover-up, but it didn't get much attention at the time. The case mostly stayed quiet until 2011, when Davern went on the Today Show and admitted he had lied about certain details back then. He even claimed that Robert Wagner had once said something like, "Leave her there to teach her a lesson." That comment reignited interest, prompting the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to reopen the investigation. They interviewed over 100 people, trying to untangle what really happened that night. By 2012, the official cause of death shifted to undetermined, noting bruises that might have occurred before she went into the water. A 2013 report suggested some injuries could have come from slipping or bumping into the boat. Christopher Walken cooperated with investigators, describing what he called a good-natured argument, but Robert Wagner eventually became a person of interest in 2018. Detectives noted inconsistencies in his story, though he refused to give more interviews. By 2022, after years of looking into leads and exhausting witnesses, the case went cold again, still technically open, but with few paths left to pursue. Experts like Michael Hunter have suggested assault could have been involved, but there was never enough evidence to bring charges. Lana Wood and Dennis Davern continued to push for the death to be classified as a homicide, yet the facts remained circumstantial, leaving questions lingering decades after that night.
I wasn't there for her. She slipped and hit the step and then rolled in. That's what we think happened.
At 95, Robert Wagner has shared his thoughts on Natalie Wood's death in ways that mix reflection, grief, and a quiet insistence on his innocence. Over the years, he's opened small windows into that night, trying to honor her memory while explaining his side. In his 2008 memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he talked about how jealousy sparked an argument that night. He admitted it got heated, but he says he calmed down and assumed Natalie had taken the dinghy as she had before. "I blame myself for everything," he wrote, stressing he had never meant her harm. Later, in the 2020 documentary Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind, produced by their daughter Natasha, Wagner spoke in a straightforward, calm way. He recalled the last time he saw Natalie. She was fixing her hair in the bathroom. He dismissed ideas of foul play, suggesting it was an accident with drinks involved, nothing more. Natasha added context, saying her dad was devastated by her mom's death and always raised the girls with care and love. Even in more recent years, Wagner has marked milestones quietly but meaningfully. On what would have been their 53rd wedding anniversary, July 16, 2025, he posted on Instagram, "Always a special place in my heart. Happy anniversary, Nat, more than love." He tagged their daughters, offering a nod to enduring love without going into painful details. Then, in a September 2025 People interview shared through Natasha, he reflected on family and grief. He admitted that, after Natalie died, he worried about his daughter's resilience. "I never thought you would make it when your mom died," he told her in therapy sessions. These glimpses show a man carrying decades of sorrow, still haunted but steady, maintaining that her death was a tragic accident, not anything sinister. The mystery around that night remains, but hearing Wagner in his own words reminds us he's a human being, a father and husband, living with loss, memory, and love long after the headlines have faded. If this story captivated you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's untold tales. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think really happened that night?